This is The Spillover, and Susanna Hupp is the special executive advisor to Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, a former Texas state legislator and author, and is also a survivor of the Luby's Massacre, which was a mass shooting that took place on October 16th, 1991 at a Luby's cafeteria in Killeen, Texas. 24 people died and 27 were injured. Susanna survived. And Susanna, if you could just start at the very beginning on that day in 1991, starting with when you woke up, what your plans were for that day, what your mindset was.
Well, I was a chiropractor and had my own clinic and was working in my clinic that day, and my parents came by and asked me if I wanted to go to lunch. We didn't have a lot of options, but the Luby's cafeteria right down the road was always a good one for us, and a friend of mine was the manager there, so we were always welcome. We drove down to the Luby's, and on the way it was kind of interesting because we were talking, my mom and I were talking about their 47th wedding anniversary was coming up, and we were talking about potential party or plans. So at the cafeteria, it was a beautiful sunny day. It was in the middle of the day. The restaurant was packed. It was boss's day, and it was also the day after payday. We sat down and ate lunch, interestingly also, in a slightly different place than we normally do because it was so packed. My manager friend sat down and ate with us. And we were pretty much finished eating. My manager friend got up and went to check on some things in the kitchen. And all of a sudden, this pickup truck came blasting through the floor-to-ceiling window that was off to the side, exactly where we normally sat. He knocked over a number of people right in that area, knocked over their tables. And, of course, we thought it was an accident. The truck came to a halt maybe 15 feet from me. It was still bouncing on its axles. I started to raise up to go help the people he had knocked over, and then we heard gunshots. My father and I immediately got down on the floor. We put the table up in front of us. My mom got down behind us, and there was a window. It was all floor-to-ceiling windows behind us. And I remember thinking, okay, it's a robbery, right? Now, realize this was 1991, and these god-awful mass shootings that we're having now so frequently, they weren't happening then. So when we heard the gunshots, you logically went to, it's a robbery. I was waiting for somebody to say something like, everybody put your wallets up on the table. Something. And the shooting continued. Now, it was on the other side of the truck from me, so I couldn't really see what the guy was doing. But within about, 40, 45 seconds, he came around the front of his truck and was beginning to come in our direction. And that's what I saw, what he was doing. He was simply executing people. Most of the people were on the floor at that point, and he would simply walk up to one of them, take aim, and pull the trigger.
Was he choosing people based on something in particular that
He
you
was
noticed?
just going from one to the other as far as I could tell and executing them. And that wasn't, it may sound a little funny to you, but it wasn't the first thing that came to mind. As I said, I was waiting for him to say it's a robbery. I remember thinking, maybe it's a hit. Maybe there's somebody important in here because the place was packed. So when I realized what was going on, I thought, there are always cops in here. Always, because they would give free or half-price meals to the cops. But nobody was stepping forward. We found out later that he sat out in the parking lot and waited for the cops to leave before he did this. So again, 45 seconds, which I got to tell you, that's an eternity. When I realized what he was doing and I realized no one was taking action, I reached for my purse that was on the floor next to me. I always carried a gun in my purse. I had the table up in front of us. I had a perfect place to prop my arm. He was up. Everybody else was down. I've hit much smaller targets at much greater distances. But then I realized that a couple of months earlier, I had made the stupidest decision of my life. I had begun leaving my gun out in my car because at that time in the state of Texas, it was illegal to carry. Actually, New York had looser gun laws than the state of Texas at that time. So my gun was 100 yards away and my car completely useless to me. And I remember thinking, what do I do now? Throw my purse at him? You know, I kind of sarcastically chuckled. I thought, well, it's heavy enough to do damage.
This is Charlie Kirk, founder and CEO of Turning Point USA. If you liked this video, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Turning Point USA.